No time to explain! Ah! No, but really, what the hell was that? Ooh, whatto chaps, I'm MagicalMike, and unlike terrible cliché plot devices, I have plenty of time to explain things. So I'll be fairly general to begin with, and then we'll go into more details as usual. The Tangled Paths added some more story to play through, and... Oh ho! Yes, indeed! A small new area to the Silver Wastes. I'll talk about the story first because that's going to lead into the new area and a few things to do with it. So we begin by heading back to the Pact base camp by Logan's request. He's got all the members of Destiny's Edge all together apart from Ritlock, obviously, because he's still missing in the mists for some reason. I was surprised though to see Zoja in person for once. It's nice to have at least some kind of workaround for not having a voice actor available. They managed to get away with it because none of the members are voice acted at all in this section, which may not be the best solution, but at least it looks cohesive. I also liked that I could boast about how good of a fighter I was to Zoja, even though it only got me a snarky comment back and it didn't really add anything, but I quite liked it. We managed to completely avoid the issue of a not knowing who Brahm is related to and the similarities between Timey and Snaff, and have a bunch of conversations about going after Mordramoth and the Master of Peace immediately. I don't know how the Pact thinks that they're ready to go right now, because they don't really have any idea what they're up against or where Mordramoth even is as far as I know. And I'm the commander, I sort of should know that, right? Anyway, the whole time Keith is acting weird. She's following you around and she's being weird and she won't talk to you properly. It's painfully obvious that suddenly she was up to something, whereas before this patch, she hadn't made anything like this obvious to me whatsoever. It's like she had a sudden change of character for seemingly no reason at all, like the writing on her had just clicked to switch and gone weird. It was obvious to me that something was going to happen later, like stupidly obvious. I don't know how to make this any clearer, the character completely changed. Anyway, after that we get to track the Zephyrite some more. That story part had some nice details, like visible cloth on the tree and the scorch marks that were there and stuff like that. And they actually took my suggestion of checking areas for clues instead of directly pointing us to a star, but not entirely because the stars are still highly visible as well. But if you ask me, it's still a step in the right direction. I must have missed why exactly they ended up in that cave. They said they took a wrong turn, but that seems fairly contrived to me. The vines in there were annoying as hell as enemies because of all the CC, but I died because I'm bad at the game, and then I ended up finding a flamethrower and it tore stuff apart, which also, it happened to be an achievement as well later on, which was pretty cool, so my exploration was actually rewarded. They managed to spoil the coolest thing in the patch once again, which was the boss of this instance. They do that every single trailer. Every trailer expect to see the coolest thing in the patch, and everything else is going to be a bit rubbish. Oh man. But this boss itself was pretty good. The one-shot attacks were a little bit much, but everything was fairly easy to avoid and overall it felt like a fun fight. I mean, I actually had fun fighting this boss, and I liked it. Avoiding his little terrorglyphs was a little bit awkward due to cleave mechanics, but it turns out for me on a warrior the key was AoE on the longbow. Challenge mode in that instance was tough. The silly amount of crowd control from the vines and the constant charging around the battlefield made it so that melee was just not particularly viable at all. I was almost forced to use longbow to keep up DPS, and when that scream came and covered the entire battlefield, I had to use mace and shield and the extra dodge from a burst skill to survive that nonsense. Still though, it was cool to have to use some thought and learn that fight over a couple of attempts. I did like that encounter and it was easily the highlight of the entire patch for me. Next up was the maze. Overall it looked pretty cool and the darkness was immersive, especially for me with my torch or fiery dragon sword used as a light source. I don't know what it is for me in games, but darkness is this fantastic tool that really puts you into the game just a lot more than anything else. Maybe I just have a thing for darkness, I don't know. I will say that this place looked a little bit ripped off from the Destiny raid, and I don't mean that too seriously at all. In the open world version anyway, you're unable to fight back, you're just running around narrow passages and climbing stuff and there's treasures around. I haven't even played Destiny, but I've seen that raid and that just looked really similar to me. Anyway, that's just an off comment. The returning to life Lurcher, is it Lurcher or Lurker? I'm pretty sure it's Lurcher, there's an H in there, right? Anyway, that was interesting, and it was pretty obviously going to come back to life when I saw the corpse and the fact that it says relentless on it. And it was nice that the NPCs could tank it on their own, because they were actually being useful for once. And that made the achievement to avoid it fairly simple as well. And speaking of useful, other NPCs actually had a use as well. Like Rox was actually required to be able to bring down the vines, and Brahm was fairly good at tanking later on. But overall, I think Rox was a pain in the arse. She was great! I had to fight everything she saw because she had a bloodlust for Mordrum for some reason. I just wish she would have tagged along with me a bit closer. I don't know. Despite that, beating it all in 20 minutes was still a breeze, and so was the boss at the end as well. Brahm had an annoying habit of making melee a little bit bothersome by constantly tanking the base. Oh god, not the base! But overall it was still a pushover. I was left underwhelmed and disappointed with the end cutscene though. I'm sure Kaith could have taken 10 seconds to explain things to us. It's a lame plot device. If you ask me, it's just not fulfilling to have that and be like, oh, it's a cliffhanger. It's not good. And it isn't even the first time that they've had a main character do something so monumentally stupid. I'm looking at you, Broham. And to be honest, I don't even know why the Master of Peace chose the most dangerous cave in the world to travel through, or how all of my companions got trapped. But maybe I missed something. It's alright, that's the story, but what about the zone additions? Well, the labyrinth opens up after the sieges now, which is a thing, and you have to run around, as I said before, and collect chests of loot and avoid all these one-shot kill mobs. The big chest has a fair few champ bags and stuff for you, and if you're into that and grinding that out, then cool, I guess. I personally ran it a couple of times and decided I didn't really like that. I was done with it. I would much rather fight the mobs than just run around and avoid them. And as for the rest of the Silver Wastes, well, it's really just the same thing. You can now transform into a mechanical siege devourer for a bit, which is a novelty, but for the rest of the patch you're going to be looking at farming just a lot more bandit crests for the luminescent gloves. It's a shame that you can't repeat the story steps for 3 pairs of them like you could with the shoulders, and you have to farm the 2000 bandit crests to get the others and for the luminescent ones. I feel like being able to repeat the story was a nice way of getting the shoulders last time, and I'm once again forced to wonder why ANET tried to fix something that wasn't broken in the first place. Will this start a new standard where I have to farm for the next skins too? Because that sounds both incredibly time consuming and extremely boring to me. And yeah, I realise the zone is permanent and we have technically forever to do this stuff, but we've already seen that people will lose interest in the area soon, and it's going to become much harder to beat those underground bosses and harvest the organs. And not only that, but you have to do that same thing again. Why do I have to do literally the exact same thing as last time? And on top of that, it's added RNG on the body part loot I get. Why? I also get that at least we get to earn them in-game and they aren't on the gem store. But why such high grindy prices for these things? At least if I want a dungeon skin, for example, I can run a path a few times and be done in a good time frame. I'm sure there's a middle ground we can hit here, and so far we still need to work on that. And speaking of the gem store, the packed weapons are on there. Yay! Every random peon is running around with these, yet the commander of the pact needs to buy his weapons from Evan Nashblade? What? I personally don't really care about that because I won't be buying them anyway, but it's just the principle of the thing at this point. It's just something to point out. Overall, the patch was incredibly short. It didn't add anything significantly interesting story-wise. It had a couple of fun mechanics and a cool boss, and really it just added more of the exact same grind that you've been doing for the past 2 weeks already. So that's really what I think of it. It's just, in a nutshell, underwhelming. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think. I'm interested to know if you agree with me or not, or if you're one of those people that's super into the farm in the Silver Wastes. Tell me if you think that the story was lackluster as I did, or if you're more interested in it now, because some people in map chat were really going at it. They think it's brilliant. I don't agree with them, but it's still interesting to hear those opinions. And that's it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.